Pudd'n Boyd is the 9th episode of the 6th season of Cheers. This is directed, of course, by the wonderful James Burrows. And as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And it's a fantastic episode. A lot of personal highlights, really brilliant moments between Carla and Woody. And I will, of course, mention those as we go through things chronologically. It starts off with Sam late to the bar, and he has quite an elaborate story about a parade. And of course, Rebecca doesn't believe him. And just as she's telling him to just tell her he slept in walks one of the parade performers with 2 performing dogs. Absolutely adorable. A very fun way to start things off. Lilith, after the intro, then comes into the bar to get Frasier, and they're kind of not being very nice to each other. And Sam suggests that they just go on vacation, go away for a bit because both of their jobs are really stressful. It would be good for them to just get away and spend some time together. And this is what they do, and we'll come back to this in a little bit. Woody is also late to the bar. I don't know how Rebecca is not pulling out hairs at this point, but he actually sent flowers ahead to Rebecca to apologise, which was rather sweet. And Carla forces Sam to tell her why Woody is late. Obviously, he knew he was going to be late because he was able to send flowers. And it turns out he's actually auditioning for a play. And then Woody comes in immediately after, and he's really excited. Cliff, in particular, makes fun of him for this, but in general, he seems to be in good spirits. And then the director of the play, Grif, played by John Paragon, comes in, and initially Woody thinks it must be because he got the part. And I've seen this episode before, of course. I don't remember how I felt about it, or what I thought about this particular scene. But watching it now, I feel like as a viewer, we are maybe led to believe that he had the part for a couple of seconds. So when we find out that he hasn't, the fall is quite hard. Even though I knew what was coming, it did feel almost heartbreaking that Woody didn't get this part. And it turns out that actually he is having the opportunity to be the understudy to the person playing Mark Twain. The play is called Authors in Hell, and Rebecca asks him if this is going to interfere with his work, and initially he says no, then realises, well, actually it might, and he stands up for himself, and he stands up to Rebecca, and he's never done that before with anybody. Usually he is just so accepting of what everybody else says, and that really helps to show just how much this meant to Woody, and I really liked that. He then comes in the next scene dressed as Mark Twain. We realise the play has been running for 3 weeks. Based on the sound of the play, I'm surprised it was given a 3-week run, but he's been the understudy for 3 weeks, and I love the outfit. He spends the rest of the episode, Woody Harrelson, in this outfit, and it's magnificent. And it's really interesting to see Harrelson playing Woody, playing a character, because it allows us to see some of Harrelson's other acting abilities of what he's like in other characters and in other performances, and it's really, really great to see. And then this woman comes into the bar called Mary. She's played by Pitoniak, and she has eyes for Woody, and she's an older lady, I should point out, and Woody obviously looks much older than he is because he has his stage makeup on, and also, he's coming in dressed as the understudy role because he needs to be ready to go on in a moment's notice. I don't think I explained that. He's not just doing this for fun. Although he is constantly quoting Mark Twain, I think he is having a lot of fun, even if he's not getting to perform on stage. I feel like he is getting this chance to perform. I'll also point out, I know nothing about Mark Twain's personal life. I have no idea if these quotes are all 100% accurate. If anybody has any thoughts on that, please feel free to share. We'll come back to Woody and Mary in a little bit, but briefly, Frasier and Lilith come into the bar ready for their vacation, and they're both wearing matching outfits, very relaxed, and they've said no phone calls, absolutely nothing, no connection to work. And then Lilith's beeper goes off, and Frasier tells her to put it away, and she says, no, you'll have to prize it from me. And she goes to walk off to the back room, and Frasier says, now hear this, Sternin, prepare to be boarded, which is mega awkward, but adorable. And obviously Skip runs after her, and then Norm and Cliff are going into the back room as well to watch, because obviously it sounded like Frasier was going to have to strip Lilith to get to the beeper, and apparently Norm and Cliff wanted to see that. And then we go back to Mary, and Mary is actually leaving. She's just leaving the bar, and she asks Carla as she's going out the door if Woody is seeing anybody. And to Carla's credit, she was definitely polite to Mary, but then she did cackle once she was out of the building. And then she went over to Woody and she called him Woods. And it was so adorable. I can't say this with 100% certainty, but I feel like I've never mentioned it, and I think I would have done. But I think this might be the first time she's called him Woods. It might not be. I might be completely misremembering, but it happens a couple of times in this episode, and it's so sweet, and I really love that. And Woody was very cheeky in this episode on a lot of occasions. Between that and him standing up for himself, it's a different side to Woody, and I really like it. And when Carla tells him that Mary is romantically interested in him, he says to Carla, she's just a sad old woman who needed someone to talk to. You of all people should understand that. Carla's face was absolutely fantastic. And then Woody realises when he sees Mary through the window, a very creepy moment where she kind of tapped on the window, a little bit sinister, and he realises he must be the best actor in Boston because he believes that she believes that he's an older person, and it was rather sweet, and Carla was absolutely fantastic as well. Then Lilith and Frasier come into the bar, and we're travelling quite a distance in time in this episode. They're wearing brightly coloured shirts. Lilith has never looked so colourful, absolutely adorable, and they've come in from their cruise, and it's really delightful. Woody then comes in dressed as Mark Twain, and we learn that the play's final night was actually the night before, but he was out on a date with Mary. And we have another wonderful Carla moment where Woody says to Sam, who thought my God-given acting talent was going to turn out to be a curse? And Carla just does a flyby, are we voting? Which I absolutely loved. 3 words, definitely made me laugh out loud. I rewound it and watched it twice because I loved it. And Carla calls him Woods again when Mary arrives in the bar. And I'm loving this. I absolutely love that. And Woody goes to talk to Mary, and she gives him her late husband's watch. And Woody goes over to Sam to ask him what to do. It's getting out of hand. And he says to Carla, poor Carla. Carla is usually the one dishing out all of the insults. So for so many things to be fired her way in this episode, it's a nice change of pace, and I'm enjoying it. Woody says to Carla, Carla, you've been dumped 1,000,000 times. What's the best way to do it? I love it. And then he goes to Mary, and he's trying to tell her, but she manages to figure out what he's trying to say before he can say, well, before he says anything, he does a little bit of babbling, and that's about it. And she's talking about how she's been lonely since her husband passed, and how sometimes it's not even worth the effort getting out of bed. And Woody, spurred on by his intense emotions, asks her to marry him. And her response? Heavens no, I'm 3 times your age. I don't think that was predictable. I can't remember the first time I saw this, if I saw that coming, but I would say 99.99% certain that I didn't predict that. And I think that that's fabulous. And she just liked his company. And I have to say, I think Woody probably liked the opportunity to kind of perform as Mark Twain in her company as well. And I just think that it worked out well for both of them. And they're having a pot roast on Saturday as well, so it's quite sweet. And Woody is still a bit disheartened that he didn't actually get to perform as the Mark Twain understudy. So Sam suggests, why don't you do it here in the bar? And Rebecca doesn't object, so Woody sets up in front of the door, and he sits down and he starts to smoke a cigar, and the place sounded interesting. And then I heard the opening lines and just thought, I'm not sitting through that. I'm not going to see that. And he starts it, and Woody Harrelson's performance is absolutely fantastic. Woody Boyd's performance is really great. And then he does nothing for a good few seconds. And his plan was to just sit there, I guess, playing the play in his head until it was his character's turn to speak again. And that's how we end things. And it's just an absolute delight. I do think the costume really made this episode. It's one of those things where as soon as you see a clip from this episode, assuming Woody is in the clip, immediately it's recognizable as being from this episode, and it looks absolutely fantastic. The only thing I didn't like, and it's not really the fault of the costume, but it is just something that I found a bit irritating, is that because of the length of the mustache, and obviously the camera angles are not pointing up at Woody, there were times when I couldn't see his mouth move when he was speaking, and I found that to be a little bit unnerving. It's also worth pointing out that I'm only 5 foot, so there is no risk of that ever happening for me in real life. So even when I'm around people with moustaches, I do see their lips moving. I don't know, maybe it's a common occurrence that if you're around somebody with quite a bushy moustache or a full moustache, that you can't see their lips. I'm never going to experience that. But I did in this episode, and I didn't love it. It was a bit off-putting. But aside from that, and that was not all of the time as well, but aside from that, I think it's a pretty fantastic episode. I really loved it. Woody Harrelson did an amazing job. Woody Boyd did a really great job. Some fabulous moments with Carla. I have no complaints. Pudd'n Head Boyd is a really fabulous episode of Cheers.